So we have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to win.
We have
love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
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 All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Stick with us. We're going to have an interview with Monique in a moment.
Oh, sure.
Stick with us. Stick with us. We're going to have an interview with Monique in a moment.
Maybe table by table. If you see the next table come back.
People are standing, they can sit along the edge. They can sit on the edge.
Yeah, and I would like his family to go ahead and go up first and grab their food, and then everyone table by table, and we have servers and everything. Thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you. Justice for Marcus Golden. Say his name.
Marcus Golden.
Say his name.
Marcus Golden.
Say his name.
Marcus Golden.
Say his name.
Marcus Golden.
Say his name.
Marcus Golden.
Say his name.
Marcus Golden.
Thank you, everybody.
Stick with us. We're going to have an interview with Monique in a moment. Thank you all for joining us. Nico from Unicorn Riot. Chris running the back end. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Are you down right now?
You know what? I can go first. I'm gonna grab a plate real quick.
Yep.
And then you want me to fix you a plate?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Okay. I'm gonna grab a plate.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Nico from Unicorn Riot. We are here live from Frogtown Community Center where we're going to interview Monique very shortly. She's going to grab a plate to eat real quick. Marcus Golden was killed in 2015 in January by St. Paul police officers, Jeremy Doverspike, and I can't remember the other person's name. His death was immediately claimed as self-defense by the police. The officers were exonerated, no charges. There was going to be nothing left for the community to get as far as any kind of semblance of justice until Monique continued to fight, and Communities United Against Police Brutality created their reinvestigations unit, and Paul Bozeman and Michelle Gross helped with the investigation to get the lawsuit in, and they won a lawsuit very recently, last month, from St. Paul. St. Paul is going to give them $1.3 million, basically providing guilt, admitting guilt in their murder of Marcus Golden. It's not legally a murder. It's legally just a homicide that he died by, but he was essentially civilly murdered after the lawsuit came about. So what I guess the few major important things to say here real quick, if you are watching and you are continuing to watch and ready for Monique to talk, is that we will have an interview with his family, his aunt Monique. You saw family members speaking earlier, his brother. If you want to go back and listen about Marcus Golden, we've been covering his killing since our inception of Unicorn Riot. Again, we were, as Unicorn Riot, created in March 2015. Marcus was a lot of action surrounding Marcus. There wasn't a lot of anti-police brutality actions before Marcus Golden was killed in St. Paul, and then after that it sort of changed, sort of created a movement. As you heard, there was Black Rail, which was like a protest at the light rail. There was Black Fair. The Black Rail came after the Black Fair because the Black Fair was sort of labeled as that to bring attention to black lives and people being killed by the police and Marcus Golden. Again, after that was the Black Rail. It wasn't specifically related to Marcus Golden, that rally, but it was coming off of the movement of Marcus Golden, so related in that aspect. And it was also against police brutality. Police had beat up an autistic child, a teenager, on the light rail in St. Paul to spur that protest. Anyways, the point of this all is community has come together, at least 100 people or so, 50 in here, maybe about another 50 outside. People are maneuvering themselves around, going to try to eat some food, celebrate with Monique and her family. Again, this is a pretty big deal. There hasn't been very many lawsuits that have successfully been had here in Minnesota, and this one was a major deal, especially in the sense that all of the legal authorities and all of the investigators within the city and state structure did not come to any kind of conclusion that the police in killing Marcus Golden. A simple reinvestigation of that crime provided ample evidence, enough so that the city is paying now the family $1.3 million because they lied about the whole situation. So that's essentially, they lied. And Alright, so again, real quick, here in St. Paul, right now on the way right side in the background is the food is getting handed out to the family of Marcus Golden. The family is getting food first. It looks like some really good food, to be honest. Some chicken, some fruits, some vegetables, some potato salad. Anyways, again, we're here at the Frogtown Community Center in St. Paul. The community is celebrating the settlement of Marcus Golden.
Hey, it's good to meet you. Nice to meet you, man. Let's keep it context. Of course. Reach out to Georgia. And, yep. If you want to, you can reach out to her. She'll get you in contact with my email. We'll do it. All right, man.
So again, this is coming off the back of Tyree Nichols, who was just killed earlier this month in Memphis. The police video body camera footage has been released today. The people here right now are celebrating Marcus Golden. Nobody is talking about the video. The video was released about 20-30 minutes ago. From seeing over here, nobody's talking about the video. Again, right now we're waiting for Monique. I can see Monique with my eyes. She is in the middle of talking to somebody and working her way over here. Once she gets over here, we will do an interview. And again, we're just going to talk about Marcus Golden. If you want to know more of like what she said before all of this settlement had happened in 2020, in the midst of the fight and the struggle for justice for Marcus, we have an interview with her that we put up in 2020, and you can check that out at our website. And if you go onto social media feeds, I believe that link to that article is already posted in a Twitter thread, potentially. That article is basically Marcus Golden remembered 5 years later, I think is what's specifically the title, something around that. We heard from Dalal Eid's father, who was here speaking. He is to the left of the screen, right there. You can see him on the left, standing next to the gentleman with the hat. That is Dalal Eid's father, Bele Gele. And then we have Amity Dimmick, who is Kobe Heisler's mother. We have who other victims of police brutality and killings do we have? We have Trahern Cruz all the way to the left. His nephew died in Beltrami County Jail. His nephew's name was Hardell Sherrill, and basically died a horrible, torturous death of neglect in Beltrami County Jail, as I said. And I think that's about it for the community members here who have lost loved ones. The cause of fighting against police brutality and fighting for Black lives and for people to have some kind of transparency when it comes to police interactions. Looks like most of the people are getting... Again, we are just waiting for Monique. She is in the middle of a conversation, and we're going to talk to her. There's Marcus's uncle-in-law sitting down. There's Marcus's uncle-in-law sitting down on the right, and other family members. His mother right behind the balloons. Again, Marcus Golden was, I think, 24, 25, in his mid-20s, killed by St. Paul police as he was in an apartment complex parking lot. they tried to say that he was attempting to run them over with his vehicle. That has been proven to be false. That he was not trying to run them over, that he did not shoot a gun at them, he was not doing a lot of the things they say he was doing. Looks like we're dropping the data rate, so you might experience a quick interruption in your stream. Continue to stay with us. Again, we're gonna have Monique. I'm gonna go butt in on her conversation very shortly to get this interview. Continue to stick with it. Thank you. All right, we are going to have an interview with Monique in a very moment. Hopefully the data rate is okay in the hallway. Again, we are here in Frogtown Community Center in St. Paul. Thank you so much. Here's a mic. Can you talk about, I know people have sort of already heard who you are.
Uh-huh.
Bring people up to speed in what CUAPB found in their reinvestigations that showed that the police were lying and covering up what they were doing.
CUAPB found a lot, but there's still more to come. So when my nephew Marcus Golden was killed by St. Paul police officers Jeremy Doverspike and Dan Peck in 2015, they put out a lot of false narratives, which the media was more than happy, the commercial media was more than happy to continue to regurgitate and just expand the narrative of lies. So it started with St. Paul police came to my mother's house where Marcus Golden had been staying because he helped out my parents, and staged his room to try and make it look like he was suicidal. So 5 months before Marcus's brother had passed, and so we had, people make T-shirts, they draw pictures, and I had a bunch of extra stuff. And I was at the house, so I asked Marcus to just put it in his in the closet for me and just stored it there. So he did. So the police came in, raiding his room, where they looked and found a gun he legally owned and planted the gun. And then also staged his room, hung up shirts around his room, and stood in the doorway and took a picture. So it was like, if not a shrine, if you were going to make a shrine, but if you're taking a shrine from the doorway, and said he was suicidal. That picture would have been considered part of the investigation. It should not have been released. And plus, it was the interior of my mother's house. They put it on NPR, and St. Paul Pioneer Press did a huge hit job. They just kept putting out lies. So what they were saying, it took 3 days for former officer, now retired, Paul Paulos, to do, he was the spokesperson. And they did a press conference, which has been scrubbed from the media as well. Can't find that press conference because they changed the narrative. They said, Marcus tried to run over both of the officers. And they said, at one point tried to say it was a domestic, but it was a girl he had been dating. It's her ex-boyfriend who actually called on Marcus. And Marcus was actually trying to return her clothes because she was moving and going away for a while that morning. So he had her stuff in the car. St. Paul police told so many lies. But thank God that there was fresh snow on the ground. So we could see that the officers never talked to him. They said they stood on the passenger side and talked to Marcus, and Marcus did not comply. There are no footprints in the snow by the passenger side of the vehicle. That's a lie. We could tell from where the gun casings landed and where the footprints were, where the officers were, where they were shooting. Marcus had passed them. They were not in danger. We could also see from the snow tire tracks in the snow that Marcus actually went around them. So an eyewitness said he didn't know if Marcus even knew that they were the police. They didn't have their lights on, and they have low profile lights. He was in the back of the Valley View apartment complex, which sits up on a hill. It's directly across the street from Regents Trauma Center. And so the officers shot and killed him, told the paramedics to avoid crossfire, enter from a certain direction. There's only one way in. There was no crossfire. Marcus had no gun residue on his hands. They told the paramedics to park in front of the building, which is down a hill. And he said, send one medic. So paramedics work in pairs. They're supposed to, two people work together. They have certain equipment they carry. So now here it is like 2:30 in the morning. They're going up an icy hill, going like a block up an icy hill and around to the back of the building. And it's just one paramedic with a gurney. So even if they did get him up, like how are they supposed to get him back down that icy hill? It delayed medical attention. He was alive at that time. He didn't die immediately. He never made it across the street to the hospital. He was pronounced dead at the scene. He had been shot in the back of his head and the back of his right arm, which obviously they shot into a vehicle that had passed them when they had not made a stop at all. The officers, Officer Jeremy Dollarspike and Dan Peck, should have been fired that day. But instead, St. Paul police launched a huge cover-up. And so Sheila Lambie rose to the occasion, and she's the one who retrieved the gun. That was found 11 hours later, but yet the commercial media never questioned that. They just said, it was found 11 hours later. Then the police said there was so much junk in the car, they couldn't find it. But yet two of the officers report seeing the gun in Marcus's vehicle. But not the gun, they said the butt of a gun or a taser, and then one said he saw, a part of a gun. So if they could see a gun, why did they need to get a search warrant? They got a search warrant to search Marcus's room. They got a search warrant to search the vehicle, right? So obviously there was no gun in view. So when we got the gun, the photo of the gun, it is laying on top of broken glass on the floor, plain view, the floor, passenger side of Marcus's vehicle on broken glass. They were messy. They never thought it would get this far. But also, they re-recorded the 911 call. That's a different 911 call. And this is how, one thing that shows it's not the original, it's 46 seconds long from the time the call is made to when Marcus is shot. How did the officers get on scene, say that they talked to Marcus, and he's shot in 46 seconds? That's a pretty fast turnaround for anyone. They would have had to been already at the building. So when they re-recorded it, they didn't keep the time frame as long. And so when we requested the name of the 911 operator and her training credentials, she got an order of protection. How does that work? How did she even know we were requesting that? So she got an order of protection. So, because, that's a different recording. In the original recording, she kept asking, well, does he have a gun? If he has a gun, where would it be? Well, would he have it in a glove compartment? And the guy's like, I don't know. So they just re-recorded everything, said that he was sending threatening messages, which was not in the original call. And so here's the other thing that we learned in the investigation. If Marcus or anyone is making threatening text messages or calls, the unit that arrives will have another unit come. One unit talks to the person who's allegedly sending the text messages. Another one goes to verify the messages from the other phone. But they can't do it on the scene. They have to actually take the phone because people can put a fake name in, or add a number in and, falsify that. So the officer claims he saw the messages after Marcus was killed, but didn't take the phone, didn't get it. There's no screenshots. So the way they tried to work around this was saying that he was using an app called Glide, where you have disappearing messages. So our attorneys reached out to Glide, and actually Washington County reached out to Glide. They got a letter back in like Arabic. We had it translated, and all it says is they have no record of Marcus's phone number using Glide. So I looked up Glide, and when you use Glide, you have to register with an email address as well as a phone number. And then because they're video messages that would take up a lot of storage, all messages, including disappearing messages, are stored to the cloud. So there are no text messages, no threatening messages, and no video messages for Marcus, between Marcus and this individual. Also, if you're going to contact someone on Glide, they have to be in your contact unless your whole profile is public. So they don't have the caller's profile either. It's just one thing after another. Their lies they just didn't add up, but they never thought that we had a community here that would rally behind Marcus in the fight for justice and to get his name cleared, because they told so many lies. They also tried to auction off his vehicle, which should have been in storage indoors, and wrapped, as we saw in the photo when they released their investigation. But where it ended up was at the impound lot, completely uncovered and exposed to the elements for, at that point, 5 years. When we found out they tried to auction it, it was just an accident. My sister found out that they were going to auction it off. Then they wanted to charge us for storage, right? And they wanted us to get it. And I was like, we can't get it, because then, what we've done, that we've broken the chain of custody and nothing can be used, for evidence to have ballistics done. So the St. Paul Police Department did not have ballistics done on the vehicle, never calculated who actually shot the bullet that killed Marcus, because they didn't want to know. Then they sent it to Washington County to rubber stamp it with Pete Orput, Washington County prosecutor, who at his house, when we were outside protesting, said, oh, we rode to the Middle East, we got all the messages, we have everything. It was so sad. Marcus was sending those messages. There's nothing. There's nothing. And actually, a journalist had recorded that, and he said his phone crashed. Like, he was like, my phone crashed. So I don't know if he was able to retrieve it, but he's going to get that hard drive again and try and see if he can get that video with Washington County prosecutor Pete Orput saying that he had all the threatening messages, had got them from the Middle East. So that's a lie. So the next step is what that grand jury record opened. Also, right? So St. Paul police kept the investigation for 28 days. They kept putting out lies in the media. Oh, he's threatening to kill somebody. They said he was wanted, or he was facing terror charges for making terroristic threats. That's a lie. There's an officer, Susare, who was there, and he said some things that weren't correct in the scanner chatter. But it's so funny. I don't know what the connection is, but you got a St. Paul officer with the last name Susare. You have a journalist with NPR with the last name Susare. And somehow, the day that the next day after the grand jury report is released, this man has audio and all kind of stuff, running Marcus into the ground, talking about the family. It was just a lot, to the point Mel Reeve, rest in peace, he called the man. He was like, look, you can't do this. This is ridiculous. This is unfounded. It doesn't make sense, da-da-da-da, and you need to stop. But just blasting us and Marcus, it was really ridiculous. They tried to say, out the blue, they reported, there was a gas can in the back of Marcus's vehicle. Well, we got the photos. Wasn't a gas can. And my sister went to look at the vehicle. She didn't touch it at all at the impound lot. They were very rude. You cannot take pictures and all kind of stuff. So she saw there was an oil can in the back. Because his car would leak oil, and he'd have to put oil in. It was just like a plastic gallon, like oil, to put oil in his car. So they said he had a gas can, trying to imply he was going to kill somebody and set them on fire, is what they're trying to imply. There was no gas can in the vehicle. None at all. So Sheila Lambie, who retrieved the gun that was planted, hours later, also, she had asked me for she's like, we get some more information. Can I get your contact? So I gave her my number or whatever. So next thing I know, I've got surveillance on my phone, right? There's a cell site similar in the back of my house, and I'm talking about it. Then all of a sudden, it's all my Google folders, just Google Photos disappeared off my phone for about 6 months. All of a sudden, I have another phone, and it just reappeared because I hadn't set it up. I didn't know what the password was. Like, oh, so they probably went through and deleted, a bunch of stuff. But the surveillance is real. It's ridiculous. I could go on that on some other stuff, but the reinvestigation is available on Communities United Against Police Brutality, their website. They've got the reinvestigation listed there for Marcus Golden, as well as some other cases that have been done. It was a better investigation that you could ever get from hiring someone because there's so many eyes on it, and I participated in that process, learned a lot, and decided I'm going to stay on and help some other families with it. Hopefully we can grow, maybe split up and have a couple different ones because there's so many people who need a real thorough investigation. And we did all this the old-fashioned way, no video. Just good old-fashioned detective work. And I'm glad that there was no video because I know what St. Paul does. They edit video. They falsify the video. So I'm actually glad there was no video because who knows what it would have done. They would have had it do. So kind of Marcus Golden's case in a nutshell. St. Paul police, they've been conducting their own investigations, and this is how they've been covering up. So I think every investigation that they did, they need to be opened up and reviewed by an independent body because we know that they're a bunch of liars and snakes and want to run around with, logos on the back of their car. What is it? Trust and something, service, some mess on the back of their squad cars. So.
Yes, thank you for all that. I don't want to keep you too much longer. One real quick question, or actually twofold.
Mm-hmm.
How long did the reinvestigation take? And then I know you have been looking into this for all these 8 years anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned even going to that scene right away.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on it. Within that, how also, we heard from your sister,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's devastated. She's
Mm-hmm.
broken, right? And also we know about Scotty a little bit, but how long did the investigation take? And then during this process, has the family found any kind of relief at all?
Well, the investigation itself, I filed the lawsuit right before the 6-year deadline. So the investigation took probably a year and maybe a year and a half. But during that time, also, while we were doing the investigation, I did ask to stop the reinvestigation because Jafford Smith was coming up on his deadline. So we took off about 7 weeks. And then they did an investigation for Jafford Smith, and then Tashira got some information about her loved one, Justin Tigan, and they looked in at that. Then I think there was one other person. Then they came back and wrapped it up. So we were still just wrapping it up in October. Still wrapping, and then we still continue to work on it because one thing that I think Nicole with the reinvestigation team always says, you're never really finished. There's always more, right? And we can it's like a never-ending hole that you can just go down. So hopefully my sister will start to feel better. She's been out, and, I think it's your attitude going into this. My thought always when people die, before was when people die, they don't want us to be here suffering. They want us to go on and continue, right? They don't want us to be grieved. And so that was my attitude before. So I have to try and live my best life, right? And be thankful for the time that I had with Marcus. And I'm so glad that we had been so close that we really, when we were together, we lived. We did stuff. We lived. We traveled. We just went to movies, went to drive-ins. And even though he was 24, he'd still come over and hang out with me. He'd do anything I asked him to do. He put up, right before he was killed, he put together some furniture for me. He was very good with his hands. So I say for anyone, just be thankful for the time you have, even though it's short. Short but sweet. And I'm so thankful. I have so much joy because I have a beautiful community here. And I do want to give a shout out, Nico, Unicorn Riot. You've been lifting up and amplifying the call for justice for Marcus Golden, particularly on the 5th year anniversary. You guys did a special. When you told me you were doing that, I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, you guys are so thoughtful and so considerate. and your work is so excellent. I'm so thankful for you all. I really do appreciate you. And I don't know, is Dee still doing the stuff? Dee, shout out to you in Africa, Dee. I love you. And the team. Y'all are great.
Anything
Y'all
else?
too good. That's it. Just thank everyone for their support, and just know that when people are killed by the police, don't listen to that story and that narrative. The family has a different version almost always, and know that, you know, regardless, if Marcus even had done all the things that they said, if he had sent threatening messages, they still had no right to kill him, right? They still should have gone through the proper channels and process, and he would have deserved his day in court. But he did nothing of what they said. But still, if he had, they were not justified in what they did. And he had been harassed by St. Paul police for some time. He had been beaten up by the police, and yeah. So it wasn't something new, but it was something more tragic than we thought was getting ready to land at our doorstep. But thank God for people like you and a community of fighters here in the Twin Cities. Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I love you. I just you mean so much, and I just appreciate, you know, it was really a group effort, you know. You're an important part of it, for sure.
Well,
You
be
gonna get a
right
plate?
back. Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think going over here.
Okay. I'm going to do an outro right here. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. That was Monique. We're going to do an outro here. Hopefully. Hey, what's up? For sure. We're going to do an outro real quick. Thank you, Chris, for running the back end. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will have more from this event a little bit later. We will post an article specifically speaking about the resettlement, or excuse me, the reinvestigation and the settlement, along with Monique's interview. So thank you all again, and you all take care. Have a good night and good weekend. Again, Tyree Nichols killing has been released, the body cam. I just implore you all to tell your loved ones you love them, and take care.